So we'll wait Dr. Sriti just 2-3 minutes and then we'll start. So two minutes and we'll start. So, allow me to start, Dr. Sriti. Yes. Okay. Good evening, colleagues. Assalamu alaikum. Wherever you are, based on your countries, so it's a pleasure to welcome you all in our third professional development certificate, Leadership in Education, Strategic and Operational Dimensions, as part of EDU 2030 Future of Education series in association with the Regional Center of Educational Planning, UNESCO. Allow me to welcome Dr. Sriti Nail, the Dean of College of Arts and Science and at Abu Dhabi University, and Mr. John with us today. I will handle it to Dr. Sriti to welcome you all and share her thoughts about education and leadership. Dr. Sriti.
Thank you, Dr. Fatiha. So I'm in this interesting role today where, of course, I'm as the Dean of College of Arts and Science at Abu Dhabi University. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to our Education 2030 series, in which we are having our second certification program going on, which is based on education leadership. And before the forum started, I was having a chit chat with Mr. John and saying that one of the toughest job on earth, if you ask me, is to be in leadership role in education sector. So all of you who are participating today, the main intention for us at Abu Dhabi University was to get all the educationists to a platform where we can talk about strategies. And why we have to speak about strategies at this given time is because the way the education sector has been impacted by this pandemic is extraordinarily challenging and amazing. And the way there were times when we all used to sit and think, how are we supposed to be making changes in education? How are we supposed to be creating an impact in curriculum development? How are we supposed to be creating different kind of scenarios that will help us to support our student success? How to change the mindset of our faculty who are thinking so traditionally and moving them from a traditional approach to a very new contemporary approach, and also to look at what is happening in the future. So these challenges were always in front of educationists and people who were in leadership roles. But with the pandemic, things changed so swiftly that with a blink of an eye, we all had to change our approaches and jump and take a boat ride where we never thought that things that we learned in just few days and time period, we could have done over our last years of career. And I know that all the education leadership specialists would have gone through this challenge in their career at this time to get the students on board, the faculty and the teachers on board. And also we have somebody called the management, which is guiding us and making sure that we get the resources done properly, we are getting the revenue properly. So many things. The next 4 days in front of us, we will be discussing various different strategies by which, as educationists, we are able to take the right decisions, able to guide ourselves through the next levels of changes that we will be seeing, how we can approach the new trends that is happening. At the same time, realize the fact that pandemic has brought us to a new direction. We are not going to go back as business as usual. We are going to be going in a direction where we have to think very differently. So I'm proud to say that we have gathered a few eminent personalities in the field who will be speaking from their experience, who will be sharing with us on various topics what will be discussed during these 4 days to support you as educationists, as people in leadership, looking forward to grow in your career, how we can make those decisions, take risks, solve problems, and move in the right direction. So again, be proud where you are, because education is not an easy job sector. Coming into job, being a teacher, I would say, is much easier than being an administrator in a teaching profession. So all of you who have taken and decided to go that direction, this is a good opportunity to think together and make the right decision. And remember, whichever field you are, public, private, wherever you have chosen a career that is really making differences and making changes in the society and supporting generations to grow in a positive direction. So good luck and welcome you all on board. And I'm happy to say that this is going to be a good experience for you, and all of you have a successful 4 days that you will spend effectively and qualitatively. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Sriti. Thanks a lot for the great information and the insight. And I'm sure those 4 days will be a great of interactive and knowledge and information for our leaders, that they will benefit from it. Allow me to also welcome Professor Joshi with us from the States. How are you? So before starting our program, to make it easy for you and for us and for a successful completion of the certificate, kindly be informed on the following guidelines and ensure that you comply with them. We have 2 types of certificate, which is the certificate of completion, in which participant who submitted the final reflection. It will be 1 reflection only submitted by the I'll give you the deadline in a minute, will receive a completion certificate. Certificate of attendance. Participant who choose not to submit the final reflection will receive an attendance certificate. Submission deadline for those choosing to submit the reflection, the deadline will be 15th of April. So we give you a good time to work on your reflection on till 11:59 p.m. Abu Dhabi UAE timing. We are having translation services. Just you need to download the Microsoft Translator if you want to listen to the professional development certificate in any language, and use the code that Mr. Omar will share with you. During the session, you can write your comment in the chat box. You are welcome to do that. We have a question and answer. If there is any question or answer or any question you want to raise, just you can type it on the Q&A box, in which Mr. John will be checking it regularly to answer those questions. And also we will be supporting him as a supportive team if there is any question not related to the content of the presentation. You have the option of raise hand in case there is an engagement and you want to participate. You are more than welcome to do. Wishing you all a great learning journey with us in our second professional development certificate. To start the certificate, during the leadership education strategic and operational dimensions professional development certificate, the 4 modules that we will be cover are school leadership, leading change in education, data-informed decision-making for school leaders, and instructional supervision. Our first module about school leadership by Mr. John Barnian, Senior Educational Consultant, founding principal, Vice Principal, IB, AB expert, educational consultant, educational leader, and curriculum designer. I wrote actually almost 1 page about Mr. John. I will just summarize that. Allow me, Mr. John, just quickly. A dedicated and innovative educational administrator with more than 33 years. He's not looking like this. He's younger. Of international academic and administrative experience. Mr. John has worked in a famous educational institution in the USA, Lebanon, and United Arab Emirates. He has founded, established, and led 3 international baccalaureate and advanced placement American and British international schools. A global keynote speaker and author of a numerous articles about pedagogy and instructional strategies and workbooks for students. Mr. John is well established as an international educational expert on curriculum development and pedagogical methods. And we are proud of him. He's one of our alumni from the Master of Education, Educational Leadership. So the floor for you, Mr. John, please.
Thank you, Dr. Fteha. Thank you, Dr. Ghanem. Thank you, Dr. Steve. Thank you all, EDU, Abu Dhabi University, that I am proud to be one of the alumni of this great university. And thank you all today attending, all our colleagues from different parts of the world. What I'm going to try today to just emphasize to you the very specific and very special, unique approach of school leaders, which is totally different than any other field. Number one, of course, we all agree that education is not a business. Education is a mission. That's why when we are going to approach to leadership, we must have a unique school leadership approach and style for education. And that's what today we are going to explore this 1 hour, 20 minutes, as much as we can, because it's a very, very in-depth field, but we're going to make it as much as very easy. It's an easy step, but the most important for us in the school leadership is this quote in which we say always, education is the last castle between humankind and auto-destruction. If this castle is down, we are doomed. So we are the last stronghold between humankind and auto-destruction. If we're down, it's the end already. That's why all of us as educational leaders, we must make sure that we are on the top of this castle and make sure that this stronghold is holding for the generations to come to have a better tomorrow. And as I always say, and I will repeat again, we are the forgotten missionaries of a sacred mission that very few believe in it anymore. But unfortunately, okay, they don't believe in it, not very few. But fortunately, there are just very few, because if this very few do not, it's the end already. Leadership remains one of the most observed and least understood phenomenon on earth. McGregor Burns will agree with this. When we say leadership, there are many variables, and especially in school leadership. And of course, by definition of Campbell Evans, is the principle of a school who binds together the various threads of values, leadership, vision, and culture. So the principle has a very, very important and a very crucial role. But today, we are going to see that him alone or her alone cannot perform without the students and the facilitators. So please, let's decide from now, we are not teachers anymore. We are facilitators. We don't teach. We have a much difficult task, is to facilitate the inquiry and acquisition of knowledge and skills to our students, to create that process of facilitating environment in which the student by themselves, they will explore and they will learn by doing. Because the moment we teach them, as Maria Montessori once said, they will not listen to us. So that's a very good, important aspect of leadership, is to be facilitators and not teachers. Today, dear educators, dear leaders, dear forgotten missionaries of a sacred mission that very few believe in it anymore, unfortunately, the eternal lighthouse of leaders' education is fading away from its sacred mission of leading the grassroots of 21st century pillars and leaders. Sorry about my pessimistic head start. It's shocking, but I could not hide my inner feelings and reflections after almost 33 years within the forgotten mission of education. Today, the tunnel through the sacred mission of education is not even close to the fading lighthouse. Today, generation do not believe in their teachers anymore. Today, values are sold within the great intensity of an unknown material world of despair and shallow thinking. Today, students are calling and singing daily, we don't need no more education. Today, Charles Dickens' fear of machines and industrial governments reach its peaks. But at the same time, today, a handful of leaders in education, never so few, like you, like Abu Dhabi University, like all of you today joining us in this important session, never so few are struggling against bureaucracy and against all odds to change the genocide in education by rebelling against all rigid procedures and systems that govern education. That lighthouse is conveying its rays from Finland, from Singapore, from UAE, from all over the world, led by these new educators, few educators, those sacred missionary, and who will continue the struggle until final victory in which education will prevail. This is the wild call to all our scholars that I'm sure you will join with me in this wild call to join these never so few educational leaders. First, we must know that there's the famous wall that we as educators, we as leaders and educators, we must destroy this wall. We must destroy this wall. Number one, the first brick of the wall. We don't need any more teacher-centered classroom. We need a student-centered classroom where we don't have teachers. We have a much more difficult task, facilitators, facilitating the inquiry and the acquisition of knowledge and skills to our students. We don't need any more books, guide, curricula. Books are just resources, are references. We need only knowledge? No, we need knowledge and skills for our students, because if they don't have the skills, how they are going to acquire the knowledge without the skills? We don't need any more non-differentiating learning environment. We need differentiation. We need differentiation by product, by content, but don't forget, we need the differentiation by emotion. And as Pestalozzi said once, if you want to reach the mind of your student, you need to reach first their heart. You can never go through their mind without their heart. It's very, very important factor too. Another brick of the wall, if we must destroy all of us, we must have a real life based education. No more many subjects, one subject called knowledge, because in real life, students are going to face problems related to many subjects. They are not going to face problems in mathematics, problems of physics, problems of Arabic, problems of English. They will face problems in general. That's why the school must prepare them for real life education and must incent in them the real life based learning and one subject for knowledge. No more summative assessments where the student will get 100 over 100 in 2 or 3 weeks. If you ask them one question, they don't even know what they learn because they just memorize everything. We need to mingle the summative and the formative assessment together. We need to approach them always with positive reinforcement, be positive with them. And very important too, a school parent mutual partnership. It must be a very important partnership because the parents are the other half of the cup. If we cannot handle that half, we cannot lead any school worldwide. And of course, we must facilitate and not teach, and students are no more memorizing machines. Why this wall is important to destroy? Because you, as an educational leader, you cannot manage a school with 21st century learning skills. We cannot lead a school if we have this wall between us and the students. Where is the problem here? The problem is here, we are in 21st century and we are using 80, 70% of our practices are based on the 18th, 19th, and 20th century. And that's why this wall is around many schools. And that's why us as educators, as leaders in education, we must know how to demolish this wall. And that's why we need the following different pillars. Number one for all for one. Number two, we are not the only leaders in our schools. Principals are leading facilitators. Number two, don't forget, facilitators are leaders too. They are leading students. And what's here the most important part? Most important part, and we must make sure to establish within our students the same leadership style. Students are leading for their life and future generations for a better tomorrow, because those students now, they will be the leaders for tomorrow. Leaders for tomorrow who are going to lead future generations for a better tomorrow. And of course, we have the fourth pillar, who are the parents, the community, helping and collaborating always. And we believe, as we say always, school parents mutual partnership, which is being a crucial layer in education. So that's the general format. In this session, what we're going to tackle together. Number one, we're going to see how can we establish and what are the different pillars of school leadership nowadays. Number one, we must understand the first pillar. We must understand the correlation between the educational leadership style and approach of educational leaders and the learning outcome of the future leaders. Very, very important link and correlation here. We are going to tackle the new dream leadership framework and scope of work, student servant leadership framework. We're going to see that in order to reach the student servant leadership framework, not only we need to understand the correlation between our leadership style and the learning outcomes of our students, we're going to see some important pillars to reach that student servant leadership framework. First, we're going to have 7 performance standards of the new facilitators summative evaluation approach. Very, very important because we are evaluating our facilitators. We must have those 7 performance standards and understand them. Number 3, we're going to see different strategies and ways to lead the students by facilitating and not teaching. Don't forget, we cannot use 20th century, 19th century approaches to lead 21st century leaders. Then we're going to see a new multi-layered curricular method combined with one subject called knowledge approach needed to establish a mutual collaborative planning habitat for us as leaders, for the facilitators leading the students, and for students leading their own life for a better life and ready to lead future generation for a better tomorrow. And later we're going to see an example of a personality leadership formative summative assessment tool to assess and integrate leadership skills within the daily life of student leaders, and different approaches, because there are different pillars for the student servant leadership framework. But today, in 1 hour, 20 minutes, I will do my best to give you the most important ones as much as I can. The student servant leadership framework and scope of work. Very simple. A student server leader leads by serving others. In other words, the student servant leaders place their interests and needs of their facilitators and students ahead of their own self-interest and needs. Very simple. One for all for one. I am a leader, my facilitator is a leader, my student is a leader. I will make sure that all of them, they think that they're leading with me, but in real life, I am leading. Here is the magic portion of student servant leadership. Generally, of course, student servant leaders, they value the development of the facilitator students, building their communities, acting authentically, and sharing power. Who are today's education leaders? I said again, principals, vice principals are leaders. Yes, we are leading the facilitators, but we must not forget that we are not only leaders in school. That's why this new formula, student servant leadership, facilitators too are education leaders leading students. And the most important here, the magic portion, the most important pillar, the most important circle that covers the whole chain of leadership, students, as I said before, are future leaders, leading future generations to be right for today and ready for a better tomorrow, and leading their own life to continuous success. So those are the three educational leaders in a school. Us, principals, vice principals, facilitators. Again, we don't have teachers. We have only facilitators, which they have the very much more difficult task is to facilitate the inquiry and acquisition of knowledge and skills to our students. And the most important leaders, students who are future leaders, leading future generations to be right for today and ready for tomorrow, and lead their own life to continuous success. Those are the three leaders. And we must not forget that always and always the students are leading, facilitators leading, principals leading, and we are surrounded always the three leaders by people we trust. When we are surrounded by those people and we trust those people, students trust facilitators, facilitators trust principals, we are more willing to take risks. We are more willing to experiment, which requires failure. We are more willing to explore and go places we did not dare to reach before, with the confidence that if we fall over, we will pick up. We will be supported by our leaders. They will pick us up and when we fall over. So the three of us were leading: the students, facilitators, principals. That's a very important pillar of the new student-servant leadership approach. Now, what should education leaders have? Of course, we all know stuff: principals, student facilitators. Of course, we know this: shared vision, common language, clarity and focus in their approach, leading with leaders. Again and again, we as principals, we must always approach our facilitators and our students in a way that they are leading with us really, but in real life, we are leading. That's a very, very important nuance that we must pay attention. And as education leaders, what should we do in general? Of course, lead by example, develop clear systems of communication, share policies and procedures with parents sometimes too, and ensure all staff, facilitators, and students understand them, determine clear roles and responsibilities. Principals empower and support facilitators. Facilitators empower and support students. Students feel that they are really leading for the future and life. And that's the feeling that is the magic portion of student-servant leadership approach. The moment they feel that you will not have any problems in your school, all of them, they will lead because they are convinced that whatever they're doing now is for them to be right for today and ready for tomorrow. Main characteristic of student-servant leaders, as any type of participators leaders, of course, one for all for one, all leading, all leaders, the pinnacle level of John C. Maxwell. We're going to see it now. What do we mean by the pinnacle level? As you see, those main characteristics that are well known: awareness, persuasion, of course, empathy, healer, active listener, committed to growth, community building, conceptualizing, foresight. All those are, in general, as we all know, the main characteristic of a participative leader, in which we use, but with a small difference here, that we have 3 types of leaders in our schools: facilitators, the principals, and students. In any other type of business, there's only one leader, and the others are following this leader, even if it's a participative leadership. But here, the 3 of us, we are leading together. And that's the student-servant leadership approach. I was very lucky to be one of the attendees of many seminars on John Maxwell in the States. And he's a great leader in education. He has many publications in education. And I was inspired by him a lot. As you see, there are different levels of leadership. First, there is the down level, is the position level, in which, okay, no problem, everyone knows what he's going to do, everyone in a certain position, and he's doing it. It's not no problem. But that level is not well enough. It's not well to fit the student-servant leadership style. Then we have the second level, in which we have the permission. So let's say I am the student, always I need to get permission from my facilitator, and the facilitator I take permission from my principal. And then we have the third level, which is the result. We start producing, there's no problem, everyone is happy. And we have the people, the students are assets for us, everyone is an asset, the facilitator is an asset, the vice president is an asset. But here, in the student-servant leadership, we must reach the pinnacle level. We must have the full respect. When there is respect between the different entities of the school, all the other 4 downplay levels, the position, the permission, production, and people, all of them will be 100% secured without any problem. Don't forget, in pinnacle level, students are leading their life, facilitators are leading students without feeling them, they are leading them, and principals are leading with facilitators for the best of their students. That's why we must always have in student-servant leadership the pinnacle level of leadership. Now, what are the different tasks or the different roles that the principals must be 100% in which involved with staff, facilitators, and students? First, the open door policy. That's very, very important. A principal or a leader of education must get rid of all aspects of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy, dear leaders, dear colleagues, are enemy number 1 of education. Of favoritism, of course, sidekicks, friendship. He or she must create the appropriate dream based on the school mission and vision. And when we create an environment where all our students and facilitators are in love with that dream, we don't have any more problems. It will go smoothly. Afterwards, of course, principals must make sure that all the staff, facilitators, and students feel that they are also leaders with a 100% ratio of belonging to the school, leading the school legacy and making sure that the school legacy is their legacy and their legacy is the school legacy, for the sake of the students who are the future leaders of life. Of course, let's not forget that the principal cannot realize all of the above by just sitting behind his or desk and giving orders. On the contrary, the principal must role model, coach the dream, fulfillment by letting the other leaders, facilitators, and students feel and witness that the principal is with them in the same trenches, fighting furiously to reach that dream. Now, the $1 million question is, can we really have leaders who will create this environment of leadership and legacy? Yes, we can. And we currently have leaders fulfilling all the above requirements. I witnessed them. I used to be humbly that leader. I witnessed a lot of those leaders, but they are so few, and they are not motivated because the external factors and different board of governance worldwide are all guided by bureaucracy. And as I said, bureaucracy is enemy number one of education. Most of the education leaders nowadays are fighting double-sided wars. One, to create a professional dream and legacy, and two, to convince the governance bodies that this is the right way of leading schools and not just following a set of rules and procedures. And as François-Marie Arouet, the great French philosopher Voltaire, said once, education is not a set of rules and procedures. Education is the right habitat, the right environment to prepare leaders for the future to create the best rules and procedures. That's why they are called, those principles, forgotten missionaries of a mission that very few believe in it anymore. And that's why most of them, they're doing their best to reach levels 1, 2, 3, and sometimes 3. And we must do our best to reach level 5, the pinnacle level of John C. Maxwell levels of leadership. Facilitators are student leaders too, as we all know. And we said there are 3 types of leaders in the different schools: the principals, vice principals, facilitators, and of course the students. Facilitators must accept and respect the students. No academic progress will be made if the students' social and emotional aspect is ignored. That's why it's very important to have differentiation by emotion. Facilitators must hold high expectations for all students, understand their students, reach their heart to reach their mind, provide them clear guidelines and expectations, use differentiated and personalized instructions. We must use real-life-based techniques, one subject taught knowledge. And here again, we must remember the wall. Most of us, we are trying to create a differentiated environment, a personalized environment, by trying to use 20th century and 19th century mentality and approach. That's why we're facing problems. Use multi-sensory approach, of course, provide constructive, positive, measurable, timely feedback to the student always. Make sure that the students feel that they are leading with them and not by them. And of course, facilitate the inquiry and acquisition of knowledge and skills to their students so that they know they learn by doing. And when they learn by doing, and when we create that environment of acquisition of knowledge and skills, they will never forget. They will always remember what they learned, and they will use it in their real life, because what they learn is always linked to their real life. And as Montessori said once, students will not listen to you the moment they feel that you are teaching them. And she said that more than 50 years ago. So we must make sure that whatever Maria Montessori told us, we are doing it today. And that's why we must all follow the PRA roadmap, in which facilitators must facilitate with passion, with relevance to real life. Always the student must see the link in whatever he is acquiring of knowledge and skills today to his real life. And number 3, attitude. He must know, he must see how can he invest whatever he learned to improve his life. Because the major question students are asking always, what's in it for me? Dear teacher, forget teacher, dear facilitator, why are you facilitating all this? What do I do with it? How do I use it? Where do I use it? When do I use it? And how this is going to help me improve my life. And this is very, very important for our second leaders in school, servant leaders, student facilitators. Once we answer to our questions always, our students, the questions why, how, where, what, and when, then we don't have any more problems. Then in that case, the students will feel that they are leading their own life facilitated by their facilitators. The whole mindset must change. The whole mindset of leadership must change in schools. Again, no more principals only leading schools. Principals, facilitators, and students are leading the school. Student-servant leadership. Of course, another problem that in general we face is the goals, and those goals in general are very rigid, and it gives us another problem. The educational leader, the facilitators, the principals, and the students must shape their goals and later share their goals with the whole entity human infrastructure. The major issue faced here by a lot of today's leaders in education is that they don't have the inner missionary call because they believe in this job to being a principal or vice principal or facilitator. It's like a job. It's not a job. It's a mission of defining education goals that are vibrant. Why? Because we are dealing with students, and every student, every facilitator, they have different variables, and those variables, they change daily. They never fix. So that's why our goals must be vibrant. And that's why it's obvious that clear goals defined by the leaders in education are the major engine that will motorize the learning and facilitating environment. And here arises the necessity of student servant leaders, students, facilitators, and principals, following mostly, as we all know, the transformational participative theory within a progressive and scaffolding objectives, gradual ascension, and benchmarks. The major problem here with a lot of principals, a lot of facilitators, a lot of students, they don't know when to intervene and why to intervene and how to intervene, and can they really create and establish, monitor all those scores alone, or they need help in that. Here lies the notion of dichotomy within the conflicts of student leadership, where all followers are leaders and all leaders are followers. And here lies that the professional approach of the principal to eliminate that dichotomy. Sometimes someone must guide structure and model. This is the solemn proof that this person is the leader, the principal, leading facilitators, and the facilitators leading the students, and students leading their life and future generations for a better tomorrow. This principal, the facilitator, and the student must establish collaboratively those goals. The principal must make sure to establish those goals with a clear contribution from its team members, facilitators, parents, students, and the principal must make sure to monitor all aspects of human resources to reach this goals without creating any conflicting zones of autocracy between any entities and himself and between any of his own team members. And that's why the goals must always be vibrant goals. Here we go, for example, clear and vibrant goals. As we see, we have three types of leaders. We have the students, we have the facilitators, and we have the principals and the vice principals. They must have clear, vibrant goals, all of them. Principals, as we see here, leading facilitators, facilitators leading students, students leading the future for a better tomorrow. But there's a big question mark here. Some of those tools that are used by principals, by facilitators, by students must be adapted and modified to better serve the student-servant leadership approach. And that's a very important factor. And that's why when we say resourcing, the resourcing and allocating resources right for today and ready for tomorrow, once we define the different goals, we must make sure that all the goals are being reached to the benefit of the students' need socially and educationally. But again, principal cannot perform this task alone. He needs the facilitators and he needs the students. And last but not least, principal must provide facilitators with all adequate resources, and facilitators must create and conduct resourceful learning facilitating to make sure that they are performing their task to reach the students and school goals. How can we do that? With outdated tools based and established on the old great man leadership theory approach. Here is a very simple table in which I try to summarize for you different tools and approaches that we can use to prepare our goals and to find our different resources for our facilitators and teachers. For example, we must use no more overt curriculum. The overt curriculum written by bureaucrats 50 or 40 or 30 years ago is just one layer in the 13 layers, multi-layered curricular approach that guide us through the one subject called knowledge approach. Imagine we're using the overt curriculum and we want to implement a new concept. The students in this approach, it's impossible. That's why all those scores must be based on those tools, one subject taught knowledge, classroom without borders, different new approaches in which it will help us reach those vibrant goals that are important to reach the student-servant leadership approach. Classroom without borders. The students must spend 25% of their time only in their classrooms. 75%, they must spend it outside their classroom. In breakout spaces, I will give some examples about this. Facilitating, not teaching. We must have clear school improvement plan with smart objective. There must be a collaborative mutual planning. The students' parents are an important pillar within this planning. That's why it's called collaborative mutual planning. Smartness with rubrics. The student helping facilitate to prepare rubrics always is very, very important. We must have a clear parent-school mutual partnership. We must interpret the transformation to the school vision and mission to needed goals and objectives with clear procedures and adjustable routines. As those routines are bureaucracy, they must be adjustable based on student needs. We must break the wall. All goals must be coherent and completely measurable with clear monitoring rubrics. All of us are principals and leaders. The main leader is the main goal. We lead together to serve the sacred mission of education and to meet its related goals. Here is again another pillar of our magic potion of student-servant leadership approach. The leader is not me, the principal. The leader is not the student. The leader is not the facilitator. All of us were leaders, yes, but the main leader is our main goal. What's our main goal? To make sure that students are right for today and ready to lead the future generations for a better tomorrow. And the most important, of course, we must always answer for our questions: the why, the how, the when, the where, and the what. If we don't answer those questions, we are creating the wall between us and the students, the wall that I showed you on my second slide. And that's why we need all those tools, the multi-layered curricular approach, one subject taught knowledge, classroom without borders, to make sure that all our students are leading their life to success and to become future leaders to lead for a better tomorrow. So the principal must make sure always we know the major resourcing. He must make sure that we have the human resources, recruitment, placement, monitoring. He must make sure that he monitors all the resources, rubrics, performance standards, observation methods. He must make sure that student self-governance resources are there, student council, student leading, collaborative planning with students, collaborative lesson planning, unit planning with students. Why not? This is the secret. This is the future. Infrastructure resources, parents, governance, leaders, students. The principal must make sure that all those resources are there. And of course, there must be effective resources management. And as we said before, it must be all carried away by new tools like the multi-layered curricular approach, in which very, very important that we have the 13 layers of what a curriculum must be, and not just only one layer, which is the standard. So principals are 100% involved with staff, facilitators, and students. That's a very, very important pillar, as we said, for the student-servant leadership approach. Dynamic and aspiring principal, pinnacle level principals, break the walls, no more bureaucracy, no more sidekicks, No more favorites, no more titles. We don't believe in titles. Who cares about titles? We're simple people. We're educators. We're missionaries of technical education. We don't believe in titles. Titles are made by humans. We are just, simplicity is the beauty. We are simple leaders. Just clear job descriptions, no more titles. Friendly but not friends. Leading them without them knowing that they are led, creating the different aspects of belonging to the school's identity, balancing between macromanagement and micromanagement within a macromanagement environment, professional learning community, respect, dignity, appreciation strategies. We are all leaders following the school mission. The real leader is our legacy, the legacy of students. Creative leading style, transformation leadership, student servant leader, creating the dream and making sure that all are in love with the dream, so that the dream and the school legacy, which is the student legacy, come true. So that's a summary of all the most important principals' crucial role. Of course, principal, they're not just sitting there, they must have co-responsibility to make sure that all students are tackling daily adequate learning and facilitating milieu and environment without any obstacles. And that's why, by following the student servant leadership practices, the principal must observe classrooms and activities and make sure that the curriculum planning, implementing and updating are fulfilling those needs and differentiating the students' various needs and communities within the new tool, the multi-layered approach, one subject called approach, classroom without borders. But unfortunately, a lot of education leaders lost in bureaucracy and rules, procedures, implementation adventures, do not have a lot of time to observe, document, plan, and implement. That's why a principal or a facilitator must be a master of leadership arts, using efficiently transformational servant role model leadership skills to fulfill his or her multitask and to lead within a level 5 leading environment, the pinnacle level of leadership. As you see here, I summarized for you the most important approaches and tools: the planning, multi-layered curriculum, performance standards, observing, we are facilitators, no more teachers, documenting, updating forms with parents always, okay, implementing, always creating rubrics together. All this with the new approaches that we have here: multi-layered approach, collaborative future planning, one subject taught knowledge, differentiation by emotion, facilitating and not teaching, real life-based learning, CC differentiation, which is we're going to see it now, curriculum, classroom differentiation, because we cannot differentiate in our classroom if we are not differentiating our curriculum. We cannot differentiate in the classroom if we're using a simple overt curriculum. We must use a multi-layered curricular approach with a one subject called knowledge, one subject called knowledge environment, so that we can differentiate in our classroom. We cannot ask from our teachers wrong, our facilitators, to differentiate by using tools of 20th century. And that's why a lot of teachers worldwide are facing problems in differentiation, because they are using old techniques to differentiate and not new techniques. So, as a conclusion in the first pillar of our session, what are the different pillars of this new legacy dream leadership style called student servant leadership style and approach? Number one pillar: all of us are leading the legacy and the dream. Number two, we must use personality leadership assessment approach. We must assess the leadership of every student, which is part of his 21st century leadership or 21st century learner profile. Even students are leading with us towards the accomplishment of legacy and the dream. We must follow the collaborative mutual planning. We're going to see all this now one by one. We must share with students our lesson planning. We must make sure that our students are present with us when we are creating our unit plans, because the moment they feel that they are decision makers with you, they will listen to you in class and they will see why, how, when, where, and how they're going to use all this information, all this knowledge and skills in the PRA roadmap, passion, relevance, attitude, in which they will see how they're going to use all this information to improve their life. Pinnacle level of leadership, another pillar. Believing is leading approach. Classroom without borders. One for all for one. Towards the school's eternal legacy, which is the students' eternal legacy. School legacy is our legacy. Facilitating knowledge and skills and not teaching. Leadership style must be molded and created by the leaders. All feel that they are leaders and that they are not led. Those are the major pillars of student-servant leadership style. Of course, we can talk about this style for years and for hours and hours. It will never end because it's education. It's a mission, not a business. Now, let's see how can we establish this framework and what are the different major milestones and the new tools and approaches needed. Number one, all staff, facilitators, okay, and facilitators and staff and principals must understand and reinforce daily the correlation, the magic correlation, the important correlation between the education leadership style of facilitators, of principal, and the learning outcomes of the future leaders and students. If not, they cannot follow and apply student-servant leadership approach. This is a very, very, very important factor. All of the staff, all of the facilitators must understand and reinforce this correlation. That's very, very important. How? In my master's degree research, I've done a small research 2018, 17, 18, and those are the results just to show you that there is really a correlation between the leadership style and the student learning outcome. As you see here, in blue are the democratic facilitated classroom average, term 1 and term 2 in 3 different schools in Abu Dhabi. And you see that if the leadership style is more a democratic one, is more a student-centered leadership style, the results are much, much better because the learning style, the learning approach, the leading approach of facilitators and principals affect really the learning outcomes. Now, here I tried to link in the different traits of student-servant leader. We have 3 types of leaders, don't forget. We have the principals, facilitators, and students, and link the related new approaches that we are going to use in schools and we're using in schools. For example, as you see here, we have very helpful as one of the traits of a student-servant leader. If you share it with or you parallel it with this 21st century learner profile trait, a student must be caring. To reach this, you need differentiation by emotion and facilitating and not teaching. And that's why, if you are not doing those two, how can you reach this leadership style, this trait? Another trait, compassionate, caring, adventurer. To reach that too, you need differentiation by emotion, you need facilitating and not teaching. Missionary, independent learner for a student. Missionary for a student-servant leader, which is facilitator. To reach that, you need collaborative mutual planning. You need a clear action plan, shared mission, vision, and vibrant goals. Mastery, 21st century leader for our students, mastery for our facilitators. To do that, you need to make sure that the students are nurtured daily with the learning profile traits, and that's why you need to facilitate for them and not teach for them. Motivator, again, 21st century innovative leader. So as you see, the different traits of the leader as facilitator and principal, and the different traits of the students' 21st century learner profile are matching, they are the same, they reflect, they are in parallel, they are complementing each other. But to reach those traits as a student server in facilitators and principals, and those traits in our students, you must always follow those new techniques. Shared instruction and major leadership, parent-school mutual partnership. It's a crucial layer in education. If you do those two, automatically you will have an interactive leader, you will have an independent learner, critical thinker for the student, as leaders. Differentiation by emotion again. Friendly servant leaders for principals and for facilitators. And at the same time, for students, they must be tolerant, inspired, and communicative inquirers. Moderator for the facilitator, for the principal, for the student, team spirit, one for all for one. For that, we must have a real life-based learning. We must make sure that the similar leadership style is followed by towards their students. Positive reinforcement methods are used. Why? Because the student servant leaders, facilitators principle, they believe in positive reinforcement to nurture the focused and confident mindset, critical positive thinkers that are the students. Participatory, team spirit driven character, in which we can see always that parent school picture is very important too. Other traits, effectiveness, that are leading to innovative problem solver, inspired and communicative inquirer students. We must have a PD in this case, which is crucial in education. We must use personality leadership assessment tools. We must use classroom without borders approach. Sympathetic, we must use differentiation by emotion approach. Role model leader, which is the parallel of 21st century innovative leader. In this case, general leadership style approach, differentiation by emotion. Facilitator profile must be there, reflecting learner profile. And we're going to see now a sample of a facilitator profile. And last but not least, student servant leaders are servant leaders, which for students, 21st century innovative leaders. So in general, I cannot establish a student servant leadership approach if I am using an overt curriculum, if I am teaching and not facilitating, if I am just leading my students and let them feel that I am the leader and they're just followers. I cannot establish that student servant leadership approach. It's very crucial today to reach again to justice for all, global mindedness, 21st century leader, one for all, team spirit, caring adventurer, real mentor. All this, we must use those new tools that we cited them and we're going to cite them again. And that's why there are 7 performance indicators that are affected positively and nurtured by the student servant leadership style impact. And those indicators are the key success of any school. Number 1, student attainment. Number 2, instructional leadership style towards all students and facilitators. Number 3, leadership and management of the principal, vice principal, academic advisor towards the facilitators. Number 4, nurturing the students' 21st century learner profile. Number 5, facilitating and assessment. Number 6, students' innovation, leadership, and critical skills. Number 7, leading by differentiating by emotion. Can we really, dear leaders in education, can we really reach a role model school in which we can use the student servant leadership without those indicators 100% reach? Impossible. Can we really prepare future generation to lead for a better tomorrow without reinforcing, without controlling, and excelling within those indicators? It's impossible, and that's why we need the student servant leadership, and we need to understand the correlation between the leadership style and the students' learning outcomes. Now, another important pillar, as we said at the beginning, that will help us reach the student servant leadership approach is the 7 performance standards of the new facilitators summative evaluation approach. We cannot follow again and apply the student servant leadership approach if we don't adopt the adequate summative evaluation process. Just to give you an idea about this process, number 1, in order to make sure that we are really student servant leaders, the facilitator summit evaluation process must be done in 2 periods. Number 1, we are going to ask our facilitators to prepare their own self-evaluation process, and we must sit with them one by one in November, one in May, helping them and compare our evaluation and their evaluation and discuss This is how they're going to feel that we are not leading them. On the contrary, they are leading with us. Of course, we need to do observation, test observation. We need to ask them for prepare at the beginning of the year, setting forms. We need to do surveys with parents. We need to do walkthroughs, portfolio audits. All these are important. All of them, again, in a very important student-servant leadership approach, where facilitators, they must feel that they are leading with you and you are not leading them. The moment they will feel, the facilitators, that you are leading them, then the problems will start one by one. Now, the first performance standard is assessment. Of course, this is just one, give you an idea. This is about talk about performance standards. It's going to take us 4 or 5 hours, but just give you an idea. First standard is assessment, in which we have 5 main indicators based on mingling formative and summative assessment approach, CMT feedback, constructive, measurable, timely feedback by facilitator to students. Summative assessment must be guided by a formative approach. That's very, very important. Summative assessments are ruining the life of our students. Even if you want to do summative assessment, I had a lot of doing in IB, in AP, it must be guided by a formative approach, reflecting students' skills and knowledge, real-life based learning, and STEAM education. This is the first performance standard. It's about assessment. The second one, about pedagogical and instruction application, how to apply in the classroom. Of course, we have here a lot of indicators based on, number one, differentiated lesson components and objectives, inquiry-based learning, STEAM education, real-life-based learning, differentiated instruction strategies for STEM, gifted and talented students, a student-centered classroom. That's why we are being called facilitators and not teachers. Differentiation by emotion. Don't forget, to reach their mind, we need to reach their heart. Once you reach their heart, when your students are in love with you, automatically, if you teach them whatever you want, they will listen to you because they love you. Students, they don't see subjects, they see the facilitator. They are in love with the facilitators, automatically they're in love with the subject. Virtual private learning networks. Don't forget, IT is no more a tool now. IT is a crucial layer in education, redefining new techniques, but not substituting what we used to do, redefining them. That's very, very important. Mastery of subject and one subject knowledge and classroom without borders. All this is based, the most important indicators for performance standard B, pedagogical and instructional application. Performance standard C is the planning. We must know how to plan so that we can apply. Vertical and horizontal integration are very important here. Scope sequences for every subject, one subject knowledge approach, collaborative mutual planning. Students are going to plan with us, yes, in unit plans, in yearly plans. Why not? Where's the problem? Let them plan with us. Let them feel that they're leading, because this is their life at the end of the day. Student-centered learning activities, classroom without borders, real-life-based learning, design instructions that meet the individual abilities and needs of students, special needs, gifted and talented, all this following the 100% inclusion approach. Performance standard D, the learning environment, is very, very important. Facilitators must manage classroom effectively, efficiently, demonstrate and implement effective use of technology, establish and communicate expectations and consequences of behavior by enforcing and applying school's code of conduct, implements efficiently the STEAM's education and real-life-based approach, believes and implements positive reinforcement methods and mutual leading approaches at all times to promote success, of course, maintains an effective and clean and safe classroom environment. Another performance standard, communication. They must know how to communicate with parents, with different students, with different staff members, with community leaders. Follow always the school's collaborative mutual planning guidelines and effectively attends all those meetings where the students and presence are sometimes the parents are present too. Very, very important standard, communication. Another standard to assess my teachers, my facilitators, proficiency and expertise with 6 main indicators based to see that are my facilitators implementing and following embrace school policies as detailed in a handbook, facilitator handbook, and are really using the student-servant leadership approach? Yes or no? Maintains a strong attendance, of course, achieves and fulfills all duties, delivering lesson plans on time, volunteering, helping parents, staff, students within the student-servant leadership approach. As you see, everything is linked to the leadership approach of the principal and of the school. That's why a student-servant leadership approach is very crucial and very important. Without it, you will never make it. But to make it, as you see, we're seeing the different tools that will help you to reach the student-servant leadership approach. Of course, PD, professional development, must be a crucial layer for our teachers, for our facilitators. They must always understand, be sure that they know, they acquire the new concepts, the new approaches, like one subject knowledge, like students in leadership, Classroom Without Borders, and we as principals, we must guide them through this process. So as a conclusion here, when we are talking about the student-servant leadership approach, what are the different pillars of education that we need in our evaluation to our facilitators? Facilitators must base their facilitating on real-life based, STEAM's inquiry-based, one subject knowledge, Classroom Without Borders, multi-layered curriculum, mingling formative and summative assessment, and always creating the summative assessment based on formative approach, leadership personality assessment form, we'll see them now, differentiation by emotion, a student-centered classroom, self-governance, collaborative mutual planning, unit plans, yearly plans with the presence of students, even weekly plans once a week. Share it with your students before you finalize it. It will help a lot. Believe me, we tried it. All this, we tried it, and it helped a lot. Big, major, minor ideas timetable. No more subjects. One subject called knowledge. On timetables, we're going to see big ideas, major ideas, minor ideas. Why? Because the students will ask you always, why you are teaching me functions? What do I do with functions in my life? Where do I use them? Why you are teaching me physics? What do I do in my real life? That's why even our timetables must be real life. On our timetables, we must have big, major, minor ideas, and no more subject. This is the future. Now, a second technique, second approach, second pillar needed to lead the students by facilitating and not teaching. And it's very, very important. We cannot follow and apply the student-servant leadership approach if we don't facilitate. It's impossible. What do we mean by facilitating? When we say facilitating, we mean by that, number one, real-life-based student-centered classroom. We mean by that a student-centered classroom without borders. We mean by that we are preparing now the 21st century lifelong learner. That's why by facilitating to our students the knowledge and skills, they will never forget this knowledge and skills that they acquired, because they acquired it by themselves. You just facilitate the process of acquisition of that knowledge and skills. That's why they will become 21st century lifelong learners and leaders. Efficient extra co-curricular pedagogical learners, very, very important too. 21st century learner profile, reflecting the facilitator profile, the hidden curriculum, and that's very, very important too. The facilitator profile, which is us facilitators, which is us the principals, it affects by 25 to 30% the hidden curriculum, which is what they copy paste from us, our students. One subject called knowledge, big, major, minor ideas timetables, collaborative planning, the multi-layered curriculum, IT and AI, a crucial layer in education, the 5 pillars of differentiation, especially differentiation by emotion, student-servant leadership, STEAM's education, inquiry-based learning. Once you do facilitating and teaching, to do that, you need all this to have your facilitating and teaching, and you need facilitating and not teaching to reach the student-servant leadership, the dream leadership approach of the 21st century, so that our students will be right for today and ready for tomorrow. They will be leading their life They will be leading their future generations for a better tomorrow. Let's not forget, all of us, dear colleagues, dear educators, dear leaders in education, that we in education and the education in general is the last stronghold, the last castle between auto-destruction and humankind. If we, the most important missionaries in life of the sacred mission of education, we're down, it's the end already. That's why, as we have a student learner profile, we too, we must have a profile and must follow it. As you see here, the different facilitator profile traits that we must implement from day one for our facilitators: excellent communication skills, high expectations, kind, caring, and compassionate. We must have passion for teaching and facilitating. We must have clear lesson objectives. We must have good classroom management skills. We must have effective discipline skills. We must have strong rapport with our students, an engaging personality and facilitating style. We must be fair. We must have knowledge of our new concepts, the multi-layered curriculum, one subject taught knowledge, esteemed education, and we must always have high expectation. All this in an environment of differentiation by emotion. To reach their mind, you need to pass always by their hearts. And here is, as we all know, the 21st century example of 21st century learner profile. And as you see, it's the reflection of the facilitator profile. Most of the schools, they don't have a facilitator profile. How do you want them, your students, follow the student learner profile if us as facilitators, we don't have that profile and we are not following? So why it's important? Why it's important to facilitate and not to teach? Because it's important for our students to become leaders for today, because they are leading with us in a student-servant leadership style. But to do that, as a conclusion of the second important pillar to reach student-servant leadership is, number one, we must have the multi-layered curriculum. We must follow CC differentiation. We must have one subject taught knowledge. We must nurture the learner profile trait daily in our students. That is the reflection of our facilitator profile. Collaborative mutual planning, BMMI timetables, BMI unit plans, big, major, minor ideas, no more subject. They hate subjects, believe me. They hate math, they hate English, because they don't see why they are learning all those stuff. This is the problem. Differentiating structure strategies, student-centered classroom, classroom without borders, all these teams project, IT crucial layer, all this will lead, as we discussed, facilitating and not teaching. So we saw until now, number one, student-servant leadership. Crucial. We saw the different pillars. We go one by one with the first pillar, the correlation between, all of us must understand the correlation between the leadership style of facilitators and principals and the students' attainment. That's very, very important. We must understand that and use new tools to reinforce, to nurture that. We saw the performance indicators for that. Number two, we saw that it's very important also to follow new performance standards, to evaluate, to assess our facilitators, let them assess themselves, and self-assessment and peer assessment with them to help them, to guide them through those performance standards, to reach those standards, to exceed those standards. And we saw the third pillar, we must facilitate and not teach. Because if we're going to teach, we cannot lead by student-servant leadership. Of course, when we're talking about collaborative mutual planning, what do we mean by that? Always a student must be present when we're planning our unit plans every 6 weeks. Student must take part in some of all or all of those collaborative mutual planning. That's helping a lot. We tried it, believe me, guys, and the results were outstanding. Outstanding. This is the student-servant leadership. Timetables, let them be there. Let them help you. Why the problem? Let them be helping you in preparing those plans. Who said they cannot help you preparing those plans? At the end of the day, in any type of business, when you want to sell a product, first you understand the needs of your customers. Why not in our educational system? Why they are not there with us, sitting with us, planning with us, understanding what are their needs, us as facilitators, so that we must make sure that we are really nurturing them, preparing them for the future, preparing to become lifelong learners and lifelong leaders. CC differentiation, again, as we said, for facilitating and not teaching is very, very important. We must differentiate our curriculum by having a multi-layered curricular approach, differentiate our unit plan by a collaborative planning meetings using the say, make, write to concept. We're going to see that now in the upcoming slides. We must have differentiate weekly plans to have a differentiated classroom. I cannot, as a principal, ask from my facilitator to differentiate in a classroom, and I am using all concepts of curriculum and curricular approach. It's almost impossible. And that's why a lot of facilitators, they are having a lot of problems when they want to differentiate in the classroom, because they are using 19th and 20th century tools to approach 21st century problems. Of course, a STEAM's project, science, technology, engineering, arts, math, social studies, this inquiry-based learning, learning by doing, and that's why we have student-centered classroom. As you see here, the banners are the students. Facilitators guide distantly and wisely. They plan, they question. The students help planning, understanding the why, the how, the where, the what, while creating those projects, creating, acquiring skills and knowledge, while creating and researching to create them, improving their project while self and peer assessing and judging. It's very, very important to prepare with the students your rubrics, and sometimes let them judge with you, let them assess with you. There's no problem in that. We have only one objective in education, dear leaders, dear educators. The main objective is to make sure that at the end of the day, my students met and exceed the learning outcomes, the standards, okay, at the end of the day. Now, I can use any types of means to reach them. That's the most important thing for us. Of course, a student-centered classroom, as we said, that's very, very important to reach teaching, facilitating, and not teaching. We have, of course, different instructional strategies. Those are very, very important that we need to facilitate. If we want to facilitate and not to teach, we need to have differentiated strategies that will help us facilitate and not. And those are very, very important, as we said, to apply the student-servant leadership approach within our schools. The fund illusion approach, think, pair, share, RAF. I'm sure you're familiar with all those approaches. I'm just overviewing with you just to let you remember all those stuff. Of course, differentiation. Don't forget, a lot of schools, they forget always the fifth pillar of differentiation. Other than differentiation by process, by product, by environment, by content, don't forget differentiation by emotion. Again, you cannot apply the student-servant leadership approach without differentiation by emotion. On illusion approach.
Mr. John.
Yes.
Mr. John, sorry for interrupt.
Yes,
but there's like a few questions. You prefer to keep them to the end, or?
I prefer. Okay,
I'll keep it for you.
Okay, I will finalize everything and I will answer them all. Okay, is that okay, Dr. Taha? Is that okay?
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, okay. The students will not listen to you the moment they feel that you are teaching them. So that's why they must have this student-centered classroom in a fun illusion approach. And we always use the E3RR, all of us, we all know that. We let them evaluate, let them explore, let them experience the students, and reinforce, and then we reward them within a fun illusion approach. And of course, there's another here strategy, the baby and the cup, the 5 different pillars of level of knowledge and skills requirement for the students, very, very important. First, the cup is the object, is the subject, the object that provides a drink. The baby learns the word cup. But that's not enough. We need to give them the skills, because the baby will ask me, how can I use this cup? You taught me all this, but how can you use it? Skills. Then he will start asking me, you know, I saw that there are different cups, dear facilitators, different shapes, different colors, different sizes. Okay, tell me, is that true? Yes, 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 my baby, yes, my student. There are different shapes and colors and size, and those are the concepts. Then the baby will ask you, okay, but I saw the facilitator that there are other containers besides cups that can provide a drink. Of course, dear students, those are the principles and generation I will teach you. I will facilitate for you. And at the end, I will facilitate for you the attitudes and dispositions. The baby will make decision which cup to drink from, and he will create his own decision, and he will create his own cup to drink. Those are some of the differentiate. There are more than 225 different strategies. Some of them, the Bono stick thinking has, again, it's another concept, another approach of differentiation. The W4H approach is very, very important. Always, as we said, the student will ask you, why do I need to acquire this knowledge and skills? Where can I use it to enhance my life? How am I going to use this knowledge and skills to improve my life? When do I need to use this knowledge and skills that I acquired today? What are the different facts, skills, concepts, principles, and dispositions related to this knowledge? Example, for example, here, as you see, a very simple example of W4H instructional strategy, in which we are teaching my, let's say, my students physics, science, parallel circuits. As you see one by one here, I am answering all those questions for him while I'm facilitating for him the inquiry and of knowledge for parallel circuits. Why do I need to acquire this knowledge, dear facilitator? No problem. Dear student, to manage and control your house, appliances, and power outlets, to manage and optimize this in life, because in life we have two types of thinking, parallel and serial. So the parallel one will help you more, of course, than in series. Where can I use it to enhance my life? In all your environment, dear students, to understand and fix a lot of electrical appliances in your daily life, to enhance parallel thinking skills in all matters of life versus series-based thinking skills. Okay, how am I going to use this knowledge and skills to improve my life? Okay, very simple. It will increase your critical thinking, creative skills, and engineering skills to create different types of electrical devices that will make your life easier. And you can sell those devices and gain some extra cash. Optimize the time for you to make the right decision in different problems that will affect your life. When do I need to use this knowledge and skills that I acquired today? You will use the knowledge and skills acquired wherever there is a problem with any electrical appliances at home and any problem in your life, to have a good parallel way of thinking. What are the different facts, skills, concepts, principles, and dispositions, as the baby and the couple saw it now? Of course, the dry cells, magnetic force, Ohm laws, resistance, calculation and skills, solving skills, mathematics, physics, IT, machinery profile, life skills, designing and drawing parallel circuits, art, and IT. You see, in this W4H revolutionary instructional strategy, we are facilitating within a student-servant leadership approach. Another approach to facilitate using student-servant leadership approach and teaching, facilitating, the say, make, write, do. All you have to do is you need to group your students in different groups. Low achievers first, homogeneous. Okay, example, the low achievers, they acquire knowledge and skills can be based on speaking or saying. Then another group of middle achievers, they will acquire knowledge and skills that say be an activity of making or generating. The high achievers, they will acquire knowledge and skills via activity based on writing. Once you do all this, this is homogeneous grouping, one say, one make, one write. Then again, you will do some heterogeneous grouping, do a flexible grouping, mingle them again, and let them acquire knowledge and skills and reach the objective via an activity based on doing or performing. This is just briefly the say, make, write, do instructional strategy. And that's a very brief, let's say, example of the say, make, write, do strategy. And take 4 periods example. A topic to cover, real life based theme, as you see. Grocery shopping with mom and make sure that the count summation is accurate by checking the receipt. The clear learning objective that I will not input here is student explore and manipulate 4-digit numbers addition. If you tell this to your student, they will ask you, sir, why do I need all this stuff? But if you tell them, guys, you know, you have grocery shopping with your mom, you need to go there and make sure that the count summation is accurate, they will see the link, the relevance, and they will see this, how it's affecting their life and how it's helping their life to be improved to better. That it is used, learning by doing, deductive way, always give your students based on Jean Piaget, some of the different ways, the different means, let them by themselves learn by doing, let them discover, deduct the objectives, let them deduct the other means, so they will become lifelong learners. They will never forget whatever they acquired as knowledge and skills. Real life-based approach, and of course, say, make, write, do. Just here to give you an example, as you see, there are different steps. Step number 1, the students will film individual their mom or dad shopping and paying the addition after checking the receipt and making sure that the total is correct. An assignment given to the students before 1 week of period 1. All students divided in groups of 5 will watch the clips, 1 minute maximum each, and start understanding why it's crucial to know and master the art of addition. Step number 2, groups we put as follows, as we said, group 1, 2 will be assigned an activity in which they need to say and articulate verbally the additions. Middle achievers, low achievers, they will assign the right addition, different operations using Excel or paper-based worksheets. Group 4, 5 will be assigned to generate and make a board game. High achievers. And later on, we are going to do in step number 3 a more, what we say, mingling those 5 groups and flexible grouping, in which they will be assigned to perform, to prepare a role play scene where one student will be the cashier, another student will be the mom or dad, another student will be the son or daughter. In that role play, the son or daughter will check addition on that receipt. Other 2 students will prepare the scene and engineer it, and one of them will film the scene. All the students will watch the scene recording, and afterwards, the facilitator will ask 2 exit questions and make sure that all students, without exception, met the learning objectives. That's a simple example of a differentiated strategy, say, make, write, do, on how to facilitate and not to teach, because as we said, facilitating and teaching are one of the pillars of student-servant leadership style. Another one is the choices. Always, if I want to facilitate for my different students a subject like math, never tell them you are teaching them math. Just give them choices. When you get to a restaurant, you have choices in a menu. When you don't have choices, automatically you will not go to restaurants. Same for our students. Give them choices. Don't tell them math only, math and science. And don't tell them math and science. Instead of telling them math and science, tell them the different real-life topics related to math and science, related to math and art, related to math and social studies, related to math and English language, related to math and IT. That's another approach. Of course, we said we have another pillar here too. It's called the multi-layered curricular method, combined with a one subject called approach, needed to establish this mutual collaborative planning habitat. It's almost impossible to apply and follow the student-centered leadership if we don't force integrate a multi-layered curricular approach or something similar to it, guided by the one subject called knowledge. What is the multi-layered curricular approach? Of course, it needs hours to explain. Just to give you a simple example, very simple one. You don't have only in your curriculum your overt curriculum standards. All our other layers are linked. In all other layers, you are going to show what we're going to do in all those layers to reach those standards. It's very, very important. Student-centered environment, learner profile, extracurricular activities, real-life-based learning, classroom without borders, IT crucial layer, parent-school mutual partnership, clubs, co-curriculars, teams education, conference culture and identity, vertical integration, one subject called knowledge, Ministry of Education main goals in your country, mission and vision, and all this. We don't ever forget the student servant leader, the most important student servant leader, student input in preparing those multi-layered curriculum, which we can do it very easily at the end of every year or at the beginning of every year without the school start. And of course, the BMI timetables, always, as you see here, we put always ideas and no more subjects. We must forget subjects because students, they don't see the link between the subject and whatever they are facing in life. Of course, the big ideas, major and minor ideas, are going to be created based on interdepartmental vertical integration, intradepartmental horizontal integration, meetings where the student is there, he is collaborating with us, helping us doing it, and helping us generate the big, major, and minor ideas. Believe me, 50% of their education of the students will be acquired while they are planning with you in those collaborative mutual planning meetings. So one subject called knowledge, big ideas, major ideas, minor ideas. To reach that, we need, as we saw, multi-layered curriculum, unit plans, weekly plans, daily plans, real-life-based big ideas, no more subject approach, BMMI, timetables, no more subjects on timetables. And of course, as we see here, once we do our yearly plan, our multi-layered curriculum, to do it once a year, we do it with our students in collaborative planning meetings. So students will explore, manipulate, and define the why, the how, the where, the when, and the what. This is the future. This is what we've done. This is what a lot of schools are doing. And this is how you can implement the student servant leadership approach. Without those tools, it's almost impossible to do it. And that's why let us all follow the star called one subject called knowledge, with a different collaborative and communication, grouping, debating, judging techniques by students, caring, differentiation by emotion, nurturing their learner profile, combining always the how, the what, the when, the where, exploring and making choices, personalized education, inquiry-based learning, real-life-based approach, and complete horizontal integration. Now, another important pillar that is important to create student servant leadership approach is the personality and leadership formative summative assessment tool to assess and integrate leadership skills within the daily life of student leaders. How can we foster and adopt the student servant leadership approach if we don't assess the personality and leadership traits of every student within a combined balanced and summative assessment approach?
So
as you see here,
5 minutes, Mr. John, just
yes,
to allow
yes, I'll
for
be done in 5 minutes.
questions,
Yes,
please. Yep, thank you.
okay, no problem. As you see here, we have different traits, creativity, innovation, promptness, and we can grade those traits daily. And at the end of the year or at the end of every term, when we give them our report cards, those traits are going to represent, as you see, 20% of their daily grade. This will help them nurture in them, okay, daily, the different learner profile and servant leader traits. We have a lot of approaches that are important, pillars that are important to establish the student servant leadership. One of them is the classroom without borders, as you see here. The student must spend a lot of their time, 75% of their time, outside their classrooms, not inside their classrooms. Outside their classrooms, 75% of their time. We must have satellite of school, out of schools campuses. We must have an extra co-curricular reflective havens, which are called satellite learning exploring areas. The students will go there and explore and engage with the different pillars of knowledge and skills. The 3 C's, the curriculum, as we see here, the one subject called knowledge, the other C's, collaboration, others see community. As you see, student council meeting rooms, perfect meetings room, leadership room, breakout spaces, role model, ESLAS, internship satellite, doing internship for our students. Why not? Sending them to have international virtual combined classroom with different schools worldwide, learning resource centers. And very, very important, of course, all this to make sure that our students are really acquiring knowledge and skills within a student-servant leadership approach. Classroom Without Borders, as we see here again, another framework, very simple. Those are the different pillars of Classroom Without Borders. And of course, it's very, very important to remind again that Classroom Without Borders is a major pillar to excel in our multi-layered curricular approach, CC differentiation, facilitating not teaching, one subject growth knowledge, collaborative mutual planning with our students, STEAM's real-life-based education, and again, a student must spend 75% of their time outside their classrooms. How we want them to become leaders for tomorrow if we put them confined 8 hours in a classroom? That's impossible. How can they become student-servant leaders, 21st century leaders, and they are confined in one classroom? That's why we have satellite out-of-school campuses. It can be public and private entities in which they will go there and they will spend, for example, museums. Here are some examples for you so that you understand how can they do it. In history, for example, in different subjects, we must contact different public entities, private entities, and make sure that our students are going once a week or once every 2 weeks to those places, and they're working as National Museum tour guides, which is history. They are working as archive coordinator with computer science, math, accounting. They are working in zoos and aquarium tour guides, science. So all this are called the SOS, out of school campuses, satellite out of school campuses. And of course, extra co-curricular activity, that's very, very important too. We need to have that, as you see here, the satellite learning, exploring areas, taking to field trips, internally or externally. It will nurture in them their leadership profile. And of course, internship partnership with different corporations to send our students at least grade 8 and up to different internship. We call them the internship satellite learning areas. And here are the internship satellite area framework, which is helping all our students reaching again the different pillars of student-servant leadership approach. And the IVCC combined classrooms or labs can be held once a month with different, and here again, senior students are going those IVCC coordinators because they are leading with us. So at the end of the day, dear leaders, dear education leaders, I went briefly, how can we establish a student-servant leadership? This is a very in-depth topic, but let's do it, and we can do it, and I'm sure that all of you are doing it now already. Number one, all of us are leading the legacy and the dream. Number two, personal leadership acceptance. Even students are leading with us. Collaborative mutual planning, pinnacle level of leadership, believing is leading approach, classroom without borders, one for all for one. The school legacy is our legacy, student legacy, multi-layered curriculum, one subject taught knowledge, aspect of strength and servant leadership, facilitating and not teaching. All feel that their leaders and leadership style must be molded and created by the leaders. So this is, as we said, the final wild call to all educators worldwide, all educators and leadership in education. Don't forget, we are not only leaders in our schools, the facilitators are leading with us. The students are leading with us. Let us not be afraid. Let us leave our fears behind and initiate the eternal journey of our school segment of education to nurture the 21st century leaders to be apt for today and ready for tomorrow. Let us create the dream, make all of our staff, facilitators, parents, and students be in love for the dream that must be theirs too. Let us break all walls of conventional styles of leadership. Let us create our own style of leadership, serving the dream and not the other way around. student-servant leadership. Let us mold our flexible style of leadership to a better serve the mission, the dream, and the legacy of our school, which is our students' legacy and dream. Let us create leaders believing in this dream. Let us get rid of all routines and procedures that can create a destructive environment of dichotomy. Let us lead for the eternal mission of education by leading mutually with our facilitators and students within the student-servant leadership framework, because educational leadership is the foundation and the basis of an effective and successful learning and facilitating environment, because education is the last castle between humankind and between auto-destruction. And thank you for listening to me for the last 1 hour, 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. John. It's really informative and appreciated. We'll keep just a few minutes for if anyone want to comment or ask live questions. And then we will go to, there is a few questions on the Q&A if you just go through them later. Mr. Nassim, sorry if I'm saying the name right, Mr. Nassim Kribo Bakri. Yes.
Yes. How are you, Mr. John?
How are you, Mr. Nassim? Education leader.
It's a great pleasure to be seeing you back in a workshop.
Thank you.
It's really been long, but I really appreciate it. I'm very thankful. I wanted to say I'm very thankful. The insight towards the modern way. You always talked about this in school when we were working together, but now I can see the depth of the topic. My only question I want to, are we ready to take this approach? As it seems it's not only, just the teacher's role or the principal's roles, but I think it also falls onto the structure design of the school, the building, how it's structured, everything. So my question is, do you think we are ready to take this step in the coming future, or we have to wait a couple of years to restructure our buildings, to restructure our classrooms, etc.?
Yes,
thank
I
you.
agree with you. No problem. Thank you, Mr. Nassim. It's always a pleasure to talk with a great education leader like Mr. Nassim, great education leader. And I was honored to work with you for years. And Mr. Nassim, I agree with you 100%. Our infrastructures worldwide are not 100% ready to tackle all those new approaches. But as, for example, in my latest school as a principal, I implemented most of them. It was not easy. It's not easy. It's very difficult. And I agree with you, but we must start from somewhere, Mr. Nassim. We must start whatever we can do. We must do, for example, Classroom Without Borders, not teaching. We can start doing, we can start implementing, and then the governance and the different authorities will see that it's working. They will help us more to reach. Again, I agree with you. It's very difficult. It's not easy, but we must do it. Because if you continue like this, the wall between us and the students will strengthen by time, and we're going to face a lot of problems. Our students in the future, they will ask us always, why the school did not reflect for me whatever really is happening in real life, so I can face that life now that I am a leader. We must start from somewhere, and that somewhere is the schools. Slowly, progressively, because a sudden change will create problems, will create backfire. We must do it slowly, very progressively, and we must reach there. Thank you, Mr. Nassim.
Thank you so much, Mr. John, and I hope to see you soon live.
By God's will.
I really missed that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nassim. Any other comment or question before we go to the Q&A? I saw some hands before, but maybe they got the answer. Dr. Ghanem is. We'll listen to Mr. Modar. Yes, Mr. Modar, and then Ms. Nerveen.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Modar. Go ahead, please.
Go ahead,
Good
Mr. Modar.
afternoon, Mr. John. How are you?
Fine. Mr. Modar.
Good. Thank you. I want to thank you as well with Mr. Nassim for this very informative workshop. Very insightful, very in-depth, just like he said. But I do have a question.
Yes.
You're saying that we cannot continue growing these leaders if we are maintaining the school system that we are already in. But just out of curiosity, how did the leaders of today's world be if they were already in this education system?
Well,
I'm sorry.
no problem. No, I agree with you. Education is the base of everything. In my opinion, if we had followed this leadership style, followed by all the different pillars that I tried to explain briefly as much as I can, we were not going to have as much wars that we're having today. We are not going to have as much problems as we're having today, because leaders, they were all student servant leaders. So imagine 40, 50 years ago, if we started this in all our schools and we prepared our leaders that are today the leaders, the students that were at the time that they're leading now, believe me, you would have much less wars, much less problems, much less problems, much less society problems, social problems, because your leaders, they learned the right way. They acquired the knowledge and the skills. They acquired the traits of the 21st century learner profile traits to lead for a better tomorrow. And this is why we are the last castle between humankind and autodestruction. If we as education we're down, it's the end.
I see. Thank you for your answer, and thanks again for this amazing workshop.
Thank you, Mr. Modar.
Thank
And
you.
inshallah, we see you live soon as well.
By God's will. Thank you, Mr. Modar. Thank you.
We have Miss Nermeen. Miss Nermeen Mustafa.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I would like to thank you so much, Mr. June, for this wonderful lecture.
Thank you.
I have taught before leadership ethic, leadership styles to my students in different universities, but that's my first time to know how you apply leadership styles on students. As servant students, leadership styles, the transformational, transactional leadership.
Yes.
That's why I wanted to ask you directly. I would like to thank you directly, and I hope all the leaders, especially school leaders, to understand how they apply the different leadership styles on their students and teachers. Yes, thank you, sir. Hope to see you directly.
Thank you, Mr. Amin. And continue the forgotten mission of education. Don't forget, don't worry. We'll reach there.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We have great entities, Abu Dhabi University, who are always sponsoring and helping this type of education, which is needed today for a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Amin. Thank you.
Welcome.
Colleagues, Dr. Ghanem and Dr. Kotsa, just allow me, we will answer the questions from the attendees, please. And then if there is a time, I will give you the chance.
No problem.
We have Mr. Tariq, and then we will go to the question in Q&A, Mr. John.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. John. Very, very nice lecture. Actually, I am international standard verifier for Pearson P-Tech engineering qualification. Actually, it is very near from what you are doing. And I think for as an answer for questions, for some questions for colleagues, it needs at least 10 years to work with that, to be on the right way.
Progressively, yes, of course.
Yeah, so it is not a matter of 1 or 2 years.
It needs really problems.
Yes. So I have experience for about 10 years now, and actually we are going very smooth now.
Yes.
So I would like to thank you again for very, very formative lecture.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Tariq. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Last one, we will listen to Mr. Ali Hassan, and then we will go to the questions because of the time. Mr. Ali, yes, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ali.
Thank you, Mr. John, for this informative one. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
In your lecture, you talked about how parents and students take part in planning, taking part in this. So how you know there are some cultural considerations that we need to consider about when we think about involving parents and students in planning.
Yes.
So how can we motivate parents to take part in this? Most of them are careless. They don't care about this. They just want their sons and daughters just to be pushed up, and that's it. Okay, they don't care about the methods or the ways. How can we involve them in this?
Yeah, okay. The magic portion is the students. Once you involve the students, we tried it, the parents automatically will come with the sale. Just in the marketing term. Once the student, they start the meeting with you in collaborative planning meetings, they will go home. You know that, yes, today I sat down with the facilitators or let's say with the teachers or facilitators, of course, and we plan together. Really? Oh, is that possible? Okay. And of course, plus there is another method too, which is to assign one or two, and here come the resources issue, the financial resources issue, to assign one or two people just to train the parents on this new techniques. At the beginning of the year, I used to do sessions, training sessions for the parents. Of course, first, not all of them used to come. You know, it's very difficult to bring them all in, but slowly, progressively, they would start coming. Assign one person dealing with them, and start creating this very important binding with them, with their with the parents, and start making sure that some of them will be interested. Create the PTA and make sure the PTA are always following you in the different planning methods and different goals that you plan for your schools, and slowly the others will follow. You will never reach 100% with the parents, I'm telling you.
Sure. Yes.
If you reach 50-60%, that's a great achievement, and we reach there. It will take time, 1, 2, 3 years, that we'll reach there. But again, the secret magic potion is the students. The students are there planning with you, the parents will be interested.
Yes, I agree with you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ali, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the questions, Mr. John, is related to the, Ms. Rosina. She's asking how to assess institutional efficacy and then plan to bridge the gap in order to reach the pinnacle. It's the first question if you are reading from there up. How to assess institutional efficacy and then plan to bridge the gap.
Yeah, how to assess institutional efficacy. As we saw, there was an example there about the performance standards. And this is the secret too, another secret too. Number one, self-assessment. That's very, very important. Self-assessment, self-evaluation. That every facilitator, that every administrator assess by himself. And in order for him to assess for himself what he's doing in the classroom, or what is in his department, they must, from day one, plan and lead with you. And here is the magic portion again. Because they are leading with you, because they are leaders with you, and you are not leading them, it will be very easy to assess. And it will be very easy to assess because they are going to self-assess themselves. Then you are going to assess with them peer assessment. The moment they feel that you are going to assess them, that you are there just to assess them, to audit them, they will rebel and problems will start being involved. That's why the best method of assessment is self-assessment, and let them feel that they are leading with you in all the different steps that you are creating for the school. Yes.
The second question is about the machinery term. The term machinery has different historical connotation, which does not align here. Why do you emphasize on this term, sir? Please respond. We will respond. It's fine.
Yes, of course, no problem. We are missionaries. I will tell you why we are missionaries. Because we have a simple mission, and the most important mission in life is to prepare the future generations. And as Mr. Nassim and others asked today, they asked us, why if we started this missionary servant leader approach of as administrators, as facilitators, as principals, if we started 40, 50 years ago, believe me, we had much less problems in our worldwide life today. Missionary means what? Believing in a mission, implementing that mission. What's the mission? Education, very simple. The mission of sacred education, because education is the key to everything. Because whoever is going to be tomorrow's president, tomorrow's politician, tomorrow's ambassador, tomorrow's engineer, tomorrow's, I don't know, doctor, he is going to pass by the school and by university 15, 16 years. And if in your schools and universities, in this case, in your schools, you don't prepare that person, it's difficult after he becomes 18 years old to mold his leadership traits, to mold his different personality traits. That's why it's a mission, because we are preparing missionaries for the future. We are preparing the future pillars of people who will lead. It's not a job, it's a mission. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. John. Dr. Ali Mansour is asking, are we assuming that all students are 100% able to take charge of their learning and fully aware of their ability to achieve the desired learning outcomes?
Yes, well, of course, we need to have high expectations. Believe me, based on my 33 years of experience, every student has a certain secret path to this heart. And here's the question: differentiation by emotion. If you reach that heart, it's very simple. He will do whatever you ask him to do. He will lead with you. He will collaboratively plan with you. And this is the problem. If we reach that heart, there's no more issues. Of course, everything must be done progressively. So that's why differentiation by emotion, it's very, very important. That's why, again, we are missionaries and not teachers. Yes.
Yes, I'll try to select some of these questions because, mashallah, it's
many questions there. Yes.
If we adopt a facilitation model, why then do we assist students with exams?
Well, in Finland, they do it. In Finland, they do it because they don't believe in exams in Finland. They don't believe in exams as we have them today. Imagine in Finland, the students, 80% of the grading is based on formative assessment, and 20% is only based on summative. And by doing the 80% of our assessment formative and doing 20% only summative, that means in the formative assessment approach, we are already assisting our students in finalizing their assessment. And assessment at the end of the day is just a technique to reach to our main aim, so students can meet and exceed their learning outcomes. It was never the objective.
There is a question about elaborating more on curriculum differentiation.
Yes.
If
yes.
You can
yes, of course. Yes, of course. When we say curriculum differentiation, the curriculum is not just the standards. That's why our facilitators nowadays have problems in differentiation. We are giving them the book. We are giving them some of the resources that come from the publisher, books publisher, okay, some manipulatives, and we are giving them the overt curriculum written by a bureaucrat 10, 15, 20 years ago, and we let them differentiate. It will not work that way. That's why we as leaders, we must make difference. We must prepare with them the multi-layered curriculum, which are combined different layers of whatever the student learns. A curriculum is what? A curriculum is whatever the student is going to gain knowledge and skills. It's not only the standards. There are other layers. For example, there is the layer of the classroom without borders. There is the layer that one subject called knowledge, horizontal integration. If I don't integrate my subject with different subjects, if I don't do real-life-based learning, then I cannot differentiate. And that's why the basis is wrong. Overt curriculum is difficult to differentiate. We must go to the second step, the multi-layered curricular approach, so that we can differentiate. We cannot ask our facilitators to differentiate the classroom if we are not preparing a differentiated curriculum.
Last question for Ms. Snov, Sharif. Hello, Mr. John. I have a question about how can we use just the summative assessment and how can I build it with the formative if I want?
Yep, very simple. I will give you a very simple example. For example, if you are teaching history, just simple history, okay? Just an example. Instead, they are not interested to know, for example, when Napoleon Bonaparte entered Moscow. They can ask Uncle Google and Uncle Google will answer them. They're not interested at all because they don't see why they need to know this. By teaching history, by facilitating history, I can prepare a summative evaluation, one piece of paper. I can ask him one question, and that question is, I can take a caricatural image of that time, 1804, 1805, that different caricature that they do in different journals in that time, and put it there and ask the student, please, can you interpret for me this figure, this caricature about Napoleon entering Moscow? And he will answer you. And this is a way to prepare a summative assessment using a formative assessment approach. Because my aim is not to make sure that he knows all the details. My aim is to make sure that he really understood why he learned the different reasons today and the different reflections of whatever happened in 1805 and whatever what's happening, reflecting that in history, because history repeats himself. And I want to make sure that his research skills, his exploration skills, his inquiry skills are getting more structured, much more better by answering that question, and not when Napoleon entered Moscow.
Thank you, Mr. John. Thanks a lot. It was really informative and great module. For me personally, I enjoyed it, and a lot of really information that we can build on it in the future. It's really appreciated. I'm sure colleagues also, they enjoyed the module and the information that they have. Colleagues, they will have the recorded link soon through email from the EDU community portal. Dr. Costa, you want to say something?
Hi, Mr. John, how are you?
Hi, fine, Dr. Costa, yes.
Thank you. A lot of interesting stuff over there. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Just one question.
Yes.
If all the students become leaders, who are they gonna be leading?
The future themselves, their own life, and the future generations.
We have this approach, everybody to become a leader. So then what? We're gonna be full of leaders.
So there is no one under them to lead.
There's no one to lead.
No, but that's the secret of student-servant leadership. The principals will lead facilitators. The facilitators will lead students, so that the students, they can lead their own life and they can lead their future, so that in the future they can lead future generations and future leaders. Because the moment they feel any of those three different sections, they feel that you are leading them, then the problems will arise again. But the moment they feel that all of them, they are leading the biggest leader, which is the main goal, the main achievement, to reach the student to wherever they want to reach, and you are not going to have any more problems, or you are going to minimize a lot of problems. This is the concept. We don't need people to lead anymore. We need all of us to lead the sacred mission of education.
So if I understand correctly, everybody should be a leader themselves.
Yes, and the secret here, Dr. Costa, is about, yes.
That's when the concept will lose its meaning, really.
I like Dr. Costa, I like Dr. Reeves' answer. They lead their lives, Dr. Costa.
Where?
That's a great answer.
That's what I said exactly,
yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Ghanem, you have a comment or question? Or
yes, thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Thank you, Mr. John, for this very informative.
Thank you, Dr. Ghanem, because you are a great teacher. That's why
thank you.
I'm exploring all the stuff.
Actually, you mentioned two very, very powerful points and keywords of all leaders. I believe myself that again, it is reachable. We can really start with a dream, as you mentioned, and we can improve the leadership among students, teachers, principals. My comment that school principal can really support this and start change. We need to change our style, our beliefs, our system in leading, not teaching, as you mentioned. And I agree with all my colleagues that it is not easy mission, but I think it's reachable. Thank you so much for you and for
the thousand step. Dr. Ghanem start with the one step.
One step, right?
Yeah. But we have to start.
Yes, sure.
We need to start from somewhere. We cannot just sit there and watch. We need to start from somewhere.
Yes. One recommendation to universities and colleges also to start change the curriculum to prepare educators as a leaders. This is very important.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dr. Thank you, colleagues. Again, I know there are some hands are raised there, but because we are over the time, like we are seven, so sorry for that. Maybe next modules you will be having a chance to participate also with our distinguished speakers. Tomorrow we will be having our second module, which is leading change in education, with Dr. Robert Ferson, department chair at New York Institution of Technology, as he is also specialized in school leadership. Have a good evening. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you, Mr. John. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, Abu Dhabi University.
Whatever we said, we will not be able to thank you.
So
and happy Easter.
Thank you, Mr. John. Thank you.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Thank you very much.
Yes, happy Easter.
Thank you, Mr. John. Abu Dhabi University, to believe in this style and following this style and leading this style to be implemented in the general education field worldwide. Thank you, Abu Dhabi University. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very
dear.
much.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll be on touch.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you.